a protest, concerned about issues around police and police shootings. I believe that right now police are the flashpoint for issues of poverty and issues surrounding race in this country. And when you look at some of the issues in that neighborhood where some of the numbers that I've heard, where you have 56% unemployed African Americans and issues around some of the highest infant mortality rates in the country, low graduation rates. I mean, really, the issues with police and race are part of a larger problem that this country is facing, and what we're seeing, I believe, is that police are the flashpoint for this. And discussions need to occur on, how we can address some of the inequities. There's inequities with arrests of people of color. It's across the board, everything from medical on. So we have been meeting with local community leaders and trying to work together from everything that I can, right? So we can impact issues with police relationships with communities of color and work on building trust, which has been a centerpiece that I've had since I got here. Actually, my whole career, I have always been interested in race relations, particularly around police issues. And I want to do everything I can, and I am committed to doing everything I can to ensure that we treat people fairly and equitably. So we are working through that, and we've got some great community partners, such as the Urban Professionals Group that we met with yesterday, where we discussed how to have some type of more involvement in the police complaint process. There is interest in having an independent prosecutor review police shootings. There's always a need for more training regarding understanding other cultures through cultural competency training that we also want to make sure we're doing everything we can do to ensure that our officers understand issues that people face. So a lot of this has to deal with starting with the type of police officers we hire, where we have a need to involve community members, where we have community members come in and help us pick the officers that are going to serve them. We look at how we hire people, right? So right now we've got a pretty stringent physical fitness test. For instance, I've got an African American male with a master's degree that couldn't pass the running test. He was 30 seconds short on the running test. But he's from here. He's got a great personality. He gets policing. He understands the importance of police relationships in the community. But because he's 30 seconds short, we couldn't hire him. So there's some blocks in place that we're going to work at changing to make sure that we're doing what we can do to diversify our department and hire more people of color. It also involves mentoring, coaching and guiding, and getting out and creating opportunities for positive police contacts. What I'm seeing is that our officers are very busy, and I've said this before, and sorry to repeat myself, but when we go out on the streets, when I go out on the streets, I see that our officers are going call to call to call. They don't have the time to build positive relationships. It's reactive policing. It's not a healthy way to do it. And what I heard from protesters last night is they want to see community policing. When I met with the urban professionals, I explained this to them, and they understand it. The council approved a staffing study yesterday that's going to look at where should we be as far as staffing goes. Is there opportunities to do more with non-sworn staff so we can free up police officers? This is something we need to figure out. I am, at the heart and soul of who I am about community relationships. And we just need to figure these things out. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned a lot is just violence in general, right? Some of the protesters talked about violence. We've seen a tremendous increase in our aggravated assaults around firearms this year. And the number's on my phone, and I'll get them for you before we're done here. But what I'm not hearing is, we're seeing, as you guys know that show up here, we're seeing frequent shootings where people are getting shot. Again, a disproportionate number of people of color. We also need to discuss that. How can we work together to decrease that? So, it's a lot of complicated issues. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. had a number of people thanking us for how we handled the protest last night. We were committed to doing everything we can to ensure a peaceful protest. And the way I look at this is that, were we successful? What are the factors for if we were successful or not? No one got hurt. There was no property damage. People got to express their emotions and their First Amendment rights. We didn't clog up the judicial system with a bunch of arrests. So, again, part of policing is that we are right now under such intense scrutiny. Everybody's saying, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. What is the right answer, right? I look at it as no one got hurt. It was very peaceful. There was some agitators that showed up in the crowd. I was down there. I was going through, there's people saying, well, I was stuck in traffic. I crossed that protest line many times, and those that were stuck in traffic were there because they chose to. There was other venues where they could have easily turned off, which most people did. The exits and entrances to 13 were closed, so that stopped a significant amount of traffic. So the road wasn't as busy. But those that were driving behind the protests or saying that they were stopped was because they didn't choose to go off on one of the other side streets to get to another avenue. So, rather than ramble on here, maybe I'll take some of your questions and answer them to the best of my ability.
You talked about there were no arrests, and we've gotten a lot of questions from viewers. How was blocking traffic not illegal?
Well, we were committed to ensuring, for one, that the freeway was maintained closed, right? It's dangerous, high speeds, critical for transit. This was later at night, well beyond rush hour. Traffic was light. It's a volatile time, and I made the decision to allow it to go on. It was a relatively very small section of the roadway that was blocked by the protesters. You look across the country and you look at some of the protests. You've got police taking on rocks and bottles, getting hurt across the country. You've got protesters that are being arrested and hurt in that process. You've got police in riot gear and tear gas, shooting off tear gas. We didn't have any of that.
Yeah, there were some talk of do the protesters want to block off Kellogg or the canal route or whatever, and there was the discussion about the impact that would have on traffic and everything else. Obviously, they chose a different option. But.
Right. And we are going to work with our community leaders to continue the dialogue like we did yesterday with the urban professionals, to do everything we can to work on these issues.
I guess when was the last time we had a protest of this size here?
Well, one of the interesting things is that, one of the things that made that grow was the live broadcasting, both from the media and other factors, is that people were showing up and we were hearing, yeah, I saw this, I saw it on TV. It caused that thing to grow, and it brought back a memory of a long time ago of the O.J. Simpson chase, when people were watching on TV and then they run out and see it. Well, we had people showing up that didn't know about it, that or saw the excitement with it and wanted to be a part of it. So we saw it grow a little bigger than we initially anticipated. But again, there was no real issues with it. I mean, it was peaceful in the sense that no one was hurt. There was no property damage.
Do we know how many people it was, estimate-wise?
Our people were saying 70 to 100, but we're not in the business of doing crowd size. And anytime we throw out crowd size, we always get in trouble for it by someone. Too small, too many, not enough. So from the air, they were estimating that.
Yeah, there's no, gauge on the last time the police had to work a protest where there was about 100 people here in Wichita.
There was last year over here by Century 2, there was a protest that I believe was about 70 people where they shut down the roads. You guys I don't know if you even know about this, but there was a protest Sunday where about 20 people shut down part of the roadway, and the traffic was so light on a Sunday, it wasn't, it wasn't worth anybody's time or effort or our resources to deal with it. So we shut down a block, inconvenienced.
That was on Broadway thereabouts?
Yeah, yep. About 8 people were inconvenienced because they had to go around the block, and the protesters thanked us afterward.
With
Chief,
the-
you mentioned community policing.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we already have community policing in place, is that correct?
Yeah, the Wichita Police Department has a long history of doing community policing. And one of the issues is because of budget cuts, retirements, resignations, we haven't been able to catch up with staffing. So in addition to, being about 30 officers less than we were in 2009, we also have new recruits that have to go through training. Once you hire someone, it's probably a 8-9 month process before they're out and alone on the street. So a lot of the community officers are backfilling for shifts to save on overtime, to help with calls. So it's not as robust as what it used to be, which is why I'm very excited for the study that hopefully will give us kind of a roadmap using someone from outside the organization that has a good awareness of industry standards and best practices that can say, here's how you compare, using data, and how others are doing it.
Just for this protest yesterday, I guess who decides who does what? Because I know KHP was out there as well. I guess how do you guys get together and coordinate beforehand for
Yes.
stuff like this?
Yeah, we knew it was going to occur, and we had a meeting, and everybody, we talked about how we wanted to handle it, and we all worked very well together. One of the things that is clear to me is the good working relationship between the sheriffs and the highway patrol, and we established our protocol, what we were going to allow and what we weren't going to allow, and I think it showed in the outcome.
Now, when we were out there, we didn't see a whole lot in the way of WPD presence.
Mhm.
We saw mostly KHP and Sheriff's Office. Was there a reason behind that?
Not necessarily. So the interstate is the responsibility of the Kansas Highway Patrol. We had additional officers in the area. We were closely monitoring the situation, very closely monitoring the situation. We were the ultimate lead in it. That is the jurisdiction of the Wichita Police Department as far as 13. KHP takes the interstate. But we were all in agreement with this is how we're going to handle it, this is what we're going to allow, and this is what we're not going to allow. I do believe in it goes back to, again, of people saying, well, you should have arrested everybody. And just those, the quarterbacking that goes on with policing today. And I told you what I measure success by.
Yeah,
But was there a deliberate effort to kind of back off the visual appearance of WPD officers
Yes.
in this rally?
Yes, there was.
Why is that?
One, I don't know if it would have been productive at that point, right? So I talked with protesters ahead of time. We knew what they were going to do. We were going to allow them to do their thing within the guidelines that were going to allow.
How much did all this cost?
We didn't use any overtime. I can't speak for the other agencies.
So no extra officers, nothing?
Well, I worked. We had some command staff that were in. These were staff that were working. I don't know if some were maybe kept beyond their shift by an hour or two, but it wouldn't be very many.
You know how many officers altogether you had out there?
Well, we had 50 ready to go, 49 ready to go, if they were needed. But that was not, we didn't want to use them. We wanted to allow the protest to occur.
And they would have been called out in the event violence broke out or things got more disruptive than they were, or what?
Yes.
What would the criteria have been?
Yeah. Yep, property damage, people being injured.
So you had 49 ready to go, but you didn't utilize all 49 out there?
No, they were all in the area.
Okay.
Yeah. And they were assigned by teams.
Sort of on alert, just not tactically deployed.
No, they were deployed to that scene. You know, and it was important where I met with all the command staff that were overseeing it. The other important thing is that, you know, we didn't have any contact with any of the protesters, but if we did, my charge is that we were going to be respectful and treat people professionally, and if someone was having a bad day, as in an officer, we didn't want them there. But fortunately, we didn't need them. So, another question, then I'll let you guys get on with your day.
The other thing I have a question about is, I mean, there's more protests, I believe, scheduled this week, the Summer of Mercy, and then I heard there's another Black Lives Matter on Sunday, I guess. Is there anything you guys learned from last night that you're going to use maybe for any of the other events this week, or are you guys going to be involved in the other events?
We were involved with protesters last night. We were talking, I was talking with one of the main protesters as he was walking up the street. And we were talking about how are people behaving inside the crowd, what are you doing? They said, you know, we talked about that a guy on a motorcycle was seemed to be agitating things. You know, we had people policing themselves and leaders in that group that were watching. We're involved with a lot of police clergy, or I'm sorry, not police clergy, but clergy that were working with us, that were at the scene, the president of NAACP, which I had conversations with those people throughout the night, throughout the protest, and we were talking about what was going on to ensure that everything was safe and that we're trying to keep things under control and calm. So there was a lot of things behind the scene that were being done that you didn't see or that you weren't aware of that facilitated the lack of any problems with that protest, other than the traffic issues. And you know what? Look at some of the videos of the other cities, please, and look at how this compared, right? So, thank you.
Do you have time to talk about the Citizens Review Board?
Yeah, I can talk a quick minute.
Okay.
And also pull these numbers on, if I can get the numbers for how many shootings we've had this year, if I got that. Or we can send it out to you later. I'm probably not going to find it. But, yeah, we'll have to pull those numbers a little further. They didn't get it for me.
We just had some questions on the Citizens Review
Yeah.
Board announced yesterday.
Right.
How was this, I mean, there's been one before. How is this different?
Well, it wasn't the city, it was the manager's review board.
Okay.
This is more involvement with the police department at a direct police department level. It involves allowing citizens selected by the city manager to sit on a review board to review all police allegations of misconduct. They would get to see everything involved in the case. There would have to be privacy disclosures signed because a lot of this stuff is protected by Cora. But my experience has been is that that helps us all the more because I am proud of the degree that and the investigations that we do associated with police complaints. We talk with everybody involved, witnesses. Now with 100% body cameras, we had it again this morning where someone came in with a complaint about a police officer and we watched the video. And away they march. It's like, okay, thank you for showing it to me. Because they saw how they behaved and that it wasn't the police. And we are seeing that more and more. But the Citizen Review Board essentially is going to have access to the complaints. They're not going to have authority to impose discipline. That's my job, right? If I'm not doing the job that the citizens want, then get rid of me. But the police chief needs to be in charge, and I need to have control over discipline on the department. Now, I believe that they will see, they get to see insight into how we impose discipline and how previous cases and past practices fit in with that. They can see the arbitration process and how arbitrators frequently do not side with police administration in discipline cases. So to me, this is all positive to allow people to come in and see it from the insider's perspective of what exactly we are doing with complaints.
So will they be allowed to make recommendations or?
Not on discipline.
Is
It will
mostly
be
just finding out what's going on behind the scenes?
no. They will make recommendations on policy, on training, on police community relations, but they will not have authority for discipline. But my experience has been is when people see what we do with police complaints and the process and understand how arbitration works and mediation, that people understand the limitations that are put forward. within the system.
Somebody wants to be on the board, how do they get on it? What's the responsibility?
Well, it's
once you're on it?
still being built, right? We have, this came out of the WSU study, right? This is nothing new. This is a continuation of the recommendations from that, continuation of what the city manager had been working on. And so those things, as we build this, and it's going to take time, you know, there's going to be debate on both sides. We want this, can't do this. But I want the community to be involved, and I also want the police department to be involved. I want the officers to have some say as well as the community. And it might not be what everybody wants, but it's going to be what works for Wichita.